Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today. I hope you're all doing absolutely excellent. Today we are gathering to talk about Oblivion Remastered one more time. Indeed, I do appreciate your patience on this video. I know it has been long in the making. It should have been arriving much sooner. I did have a couple of reviews / previews to take care of in the meantime, but also with games like Oblivion Remastered where it's shadow dropped, or other bigger games like a Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 or a Baldur's Gate 3, I play them in what I would call the more standard gamer environment. I review games very often, as many of you know, and I think a lot of games function well in that review environment where it's like, you got 2 weeks or a week to beat this. But when a game like Oblivion Remastered gets shadow dropped and I have the opportunity to just play it like a fan, I kind of eat that up. Even if I lose a lot of views in the process, like, it's just awesome to still have that experience within the whole review process. And so part of that was also because I was waiting on some patches. The too long didn't read is this for Oblivion Remastered. I really like what Bethesda and Virtuos have done here. Of course, it's Oblivion, and I already knew I loved Oblivion, but this does set a new standard for remasters that I want to talk about. At the same time, this is the first Bethesda experience since Fallout 76 and no time prior, which I know a lot of people are going to be like, ha, you're lying, but seriously, this is the first time I've had to bow out because of technical issues, and I know there's no doubt a patch on the way sometime soon, but look, man, it's been a few weeks now, and I just got to call it as it is at this point. Maybe this critique gets invalidated, but I'll talk about it. But technical issues have hampered my playthrough so much that it's shut me down here on PC, because my last time I was playing the game, I went in for a 5-hour session. I crashed 4 times, and the 5th time I got into my crash, it blue screened my computer. So yeah, man, like, pretty rough stuff here. I got a lot more to share, but first, let's get into today's sponsor. Why didn't anyone warn me when I was a kid that being an adult would be so dang expensive, dude? Like, buying a house, there's always something you want to update or fix. That's going to cost money. Groceries are super expensive. That's going to cost money. So we're all looking to save somewhere, somehow, and you may be spending money that you're not even aware of. And that's why I'm here to tell you about my beloved Rocket Money, who's here to save you some cold hard cash. For those unintroduced, Rocket Money is an all-in-one personal finance app that helps you cancel subscriptions, lower bills, and manage your money better. Look, I take pride in the fact that I think I do a good job looking over my personal funds and expenses, but my God, I went through a Rocket Money and I found TV subscriptions, newspaper subscriptions, I found music subscriptions. I'm like, yo, I was spending like hundreds a month, and how do I not realize this? Again, I feel like I'm looking over my bank account like a hawk most months, but clearly these things are flying under the radar. So Rocket Money's helped me lower my bills by canceling those subscriptions for me with a few taps. And in saving that money, I've been able to start to create a little budget for the things I want to actually spend my money on, not like subscriptions I'm not using, but maybe those improvements to the house I was talking about, or bringing a new set of hands on board to work on the game with my team. And Rocket Money will like automatically analyze your accounts and help you set those goals and then reach them. So it's just really great for saving money. So what are you waiting for? Take control of your finances today. Even if you're like me, you think you had control, you actually might not. Go ahead, sign up to Rocket Money at rocketmoney.com/MattyPlays and get started today for free. All right, I want to start off with the good, because to me, Oblivion Remastered does a lot more good than bad. Again, it is Oblivion at the end of the day, but first and foremost is the upgrade to presentation. This is something that I never got tired of. I thought so long about what a Bethesda game would look like in Unreal Engine. We've hypothesized about this for so long, as well as a community, because so many people have said, like, Creation Engine is the problem. Like, what would it look like in a different engine? I'm like, Bethesda games with some level of fidelity. That's just a weird combination, but I think Oblivion Remastered looks brilliant. Some of the character models, I think, are just still truly impressive. I think some of the animation work is much better than anything Bethesda Game Studios has done before, and the fact that this is just updating a 2006 game gives me a lot of hope for their future. These are things that Bethesda has overlooked for a while. And while I forgive the fidelity side of things because their worlds are so interactable and dynamic, and there's physics tied to like every object, so it's crazy how quickly things can like dip in performance. I think of Fallout 3 where you like shoot the fat man and you see like everything in the environment moving. Like, most games just, you know, break in those sorts of moments. So I forgive the fidelity side of things for Bethesda not pushing it, but things like animation, I think, would lift their game to a whole new level. Just the way combat would feel, combat would look, and even games like Starfield, while they're better, I think Oblivion Remastered does take it to a level for the most part. There's like the Naruto running sprint animation up a hill that just looks awful. I hope they test more animations for their next remaster, because this looks ridiculous and it takes me out of it every time. But everything from the lighting to the character models to the texture details, Oblivion Remastered is beautiful looking. And the fact that this is borderline a remake on this level that Bethesda has been working on here, and they're calling it a remaster, does redefine the term in a lot of interesting ways. While it's still the game I love and remember at its core, giving it this new fresh coat of paint does add a lot of sauce to the package. Like, I always was a stop and smell the roses and take in the view kind of guy, but there's seriously, with like the draw distance and improved texture quality and improved lighting, like there's some moments you just take in the whole world and its vibrancy and you're like, damn, man, really good. Speaking of vibrancy, that's something that I feel like over time they really did nail. I feel like a lot of the saturation in the world was captured very well compared to the original. This is something that I first was saying that was not the case in my experience, but brightness might have been a little too high. Didn't realize that somehow it was set much higher. But once we got it to normal, because our editor Dan was recording footage, and I'm like, dude, why does yours look so much? I'm like, are you color correcting? He's like, no. So yeah, I then reverted back to the original brightness settings. I'm like, oh my God, oh, this looks great. So I think they did a really good job just capturing the visual feel and tone of Oblivion at the same time as upgrading it. So huge positive there. On the negative side, we'll compliment sandwich this. On the negative side, I got to get into my experience with performance here. As I've documented before, and I don't think anyone believes me, but I am one of those Bethesda fans that has said many times before that I see online what everyone's posting, right? Like, I see the videos, the clips, oh, look at this crash, look at this bug, Bethesda, and I'm like, I see it. I'm not saying it's not real, but I have played their games since Morrowind. So basically the entirety of my life, ever since I could just like form my own individual thoughts. And I have never really had this tremendously buggy experience. Janky, absolutely, but buggy, like it's breaking. The first time I really hit that wall was, like many of you, Fallout 76, where I was like, what the hell is happening here? Now, kudos to Bethesda. They hung with it for a very long time and gradually did fix that thing up. But when it comes to Oblivion Remastered, this is the second time I have been bodied out of a Bethesda experience from technical issues. I can handle stuttering. This is something that happens in the open world, and it's frustrating, especially because the game looks so good when I'm playing it on Ultra. Even with some of our workaround attempts, like activating FSR and deactivating DLSS, it still does stutter occasionally in the open world. But if that's the most of the technical issues, I'm okay with it, because the game is already pushing so many new ideas to the forefront for a remaster. But it also crashes a lot. As I put more hours into the game, it crashes a lot here on PC. Again, I can handle it once or twice over the course of a playthrough, maybe even 3 or 4 times over a full Bethesda Game Studios playthrough. That's fine. But in the case of this game, the fact that I only got 30 hours in and I crashed dozens of times is a really bad sign. And I have no doubt in my mind Bethesda Game Studios is working on a patch, but I also have to fairly represent my experience thus far. I'll be the first one to cover that patch when it comes out and talk to you about my experience with it, but this sucks for me as a fan because I don't ever have to shelve my experience with their games. I always enjoyed them a lot. 76 was obviously the perfect example of when it was way too far gone for many of us, but I've never really had this with a traditional BGS game. Like, I guess with 76, you could even put an asterisk on that because it's like, well, it's our first time with multiplayer and live service, and the game clearly wasn't ready. But with Oblivion Remastered as a shadow drop release, it's like, where was the pressure to get this out in April? And I'm really curious when they drop a patch. I'm guessing sometime in June, maybe like with the Xbox Showcase. I don't know if they'll announce a patch on stage, but maybe they'll talk about it within that window. But whenever that patch hits, if it does fix a lot of the stability issues I'm having with Oblivion Remastered, then I do wonder if they could have just held it for 2 more months like it was originally rumored to be in June, and it would have been a more stable but yet still very exciting launch. I think Bethesda Game Studios, as I talked about a bit, gets a little ahead of themselves, and it's good to be excited and create excitement, and we're all excited. The game sold really well. It's like a top 3 best-selling game of 2025 so far, but also, like, as the excitement wears off and that reality sets in, I don't want to feel upset or bitter about it. So I just want them to be a little more careful about that. But really, at the end of the day, these stability issues have pushed me out, and I haven't been able to finish many of the quest lines I want to. I haven't really bothered to get to the DLC, and this is something I've said for a lot of games, is that you got to show your best out the gate simply because there's too much competition. And even as a Bethesda Game Studios diehard, for me, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go play Doom. I'm going to go play Last Defense Academy. I'm going to go play X, Y, and Z. Like, there's so many options out there that even I, who adores their games, do not have any time for this sort of crashing and bugs constantly popping up. Fortunately, though, the bugs don't interfere with content in the terms of like, oh, that quest that used to work doesn't now, in my experience. I haven't read up if anyone else has had that, but it's not like the game has introduced new content bugs, in my experience, outside of stuttering the open world. They also did some other fun things with this remaster that I thought were great additions, and when they do future remasters for other Bethesda games, I hope they keep. One of them was adding more voice actors to the pool. One of Oblivion's defining qualities was the fact that in a 2006 game, everyone sounded the same. You'd occasionally get like, oh, Todd Howard's voicing a character. Interesting, just this one random character. Cool. But otherwise, like if you looked at Wes Johnson's roles in Oblivion, it's a mile long. So I like that at least with a lot of the enemies in the open world, they switched out their voice actors for new ones. And you can hear it, like you can tell, but I really think it's just the trained ear. Like I don't know how else to put it, because it is definitely something that mixes well, it blends well, it feels natural. But for me, when I hear that new bark, I'm like, oh shit, oh my God, that's a new voice. That's a new voice. I love that. Same thing when I talk to a random NPC and they have like a completely new actor or actress. I'm like, oh, this is exciting. This makes the world feel real and believable. But I also love that they did lean into some of the original jank of the game. Like, of course, famously, one that's in this game is the voice actress doing her take twice in the same scene, and just they kept that in the game.
I heard that thieves broke into the Arcane University, the Imperial Legion compound, and the temple all on the same night. Wait a minute, let me do that one again. I heard that thieves broke into...
I really would love to be in the room, because this had to be a whole conversation, right? Like, there's the perfectionist side of things, like, we overlooked this. Like, this is a really bad mess up to just keep in the game. And in 2006, and, you know, nostalgia doing its thing, it's charming, but when you combine it with all other potential mistakes or bugs or glitches or errors that could crop up with this remaster re-releasing, this could just make them look lazier. Like, oh, we didn't fix that either. We didn't want to. I'm glad that they kept that sort of stuff, though. The stuff that really gave Oblivion its personality. I also appreciate, and I said this in my re-reviews of the game, because I just did a full playthrough of this game last year, but I appreciate how much this game walks the line of Morrowind and Skyrim. I do still like Skyrim more, but I mean, we're talking about my favorite kids here. I adore both these games on a very similar level because they do very different things. Morrowind is as hardcore of an RPG as you can get, and then Skyrim is not as hardcore, but it's definitely, I think, the best adventure game I'll ever play. So when you look at Oblivion, it lives in between these two. It's got the adventure of Skyrim with very little dungeon diversity. I'll throw that in there. But then you also have the RPG elements from Morrowind in some ways, like just the way your levels and skills scale, the way that quests can be dynamically approached. There are levels of choice and consequence and player creativity that can be injected in here. I just love how many secrets are packed into this world. Easter eggs are packed into this world. There is something that does make it truly special on that level. I usually talk about the Dark Brotherhood, but I want to talk about like the Thieves Guild. The Thieves Guild opens up with a quest where you have to like steal someone's notebook, but there's a lot of different states to this quest line that can be easily missed or overlooked. Like if you get beat in the competition, you have to steal it from the person who beat you in the competition. It's like this true master thief feel, like, oh man, they beat me out. We race to steal from this person's house, like lock picking in the middle of the night. And then we get inside there and she beat me to it. So I had to break into someone else's house and steal from inside their cabinet. And I was like, this is cool, man. Like, I just love that they consider that. Those extra steps are something that really aren't in a lot of Bethesda Game Studios games, even Fallout 3, since Oblivion. So I just appreciated that sort of nuance in the quest design. I think Starfield does a pretty good job of adding some choice and consequence, but I do miss this sort of player creativity and freedom that Oblivion really does embrace. I think a missed opportunity for this game was the leveling system. The leveling system is a little bit changed in how you like dole out points, and they kind of limit how deep you can go into particular attributes and how many you're granted per level. Those changes are there. It's still the same as like when you rest, you level up. But I think the thing that bums me out a little bit is this was an opportunity to overhaul it a little bit and make the game better. Bruce Nesmith, who helped design the leveling system for Oblivion, has openly talked about how this wasn't great and that they felt they fixed it in Skyrim, and they were very happy with it. And so I feel like when the guy who is in the meat and potatoes of the leveling system had said to himself that, like, yeah, this was a mistake, then this is something that could have been cleaned up or changed, because Oblivion has pretty bad level scaling where enemies like level with you, and it's a problem that's running so deep in Oblivion that there are full-on video essays about Oblivion's leveling system. So I just look at all of that and say, if I'm Bethesda Game Studios, that loyalty to the original vision is also what kind of hurts the remaster, because this is something that I don't think would have removed. Oh man, remember that busted ass leveling system? Remember how annoying it was when you turned like level 13, 14, 15, all of a sudden everyone's like spongy and hits like a bus. Like, that's just, if I could do away with that, that'd be great, because that gets into one of the things I did talk about in our issues video, which is Oblivion's difficulty options. You know, this is a game that has like all these difficulty settings, and they just multiply the enemy's health and your damage dealt, and it just doesn't feel good. I really wish that they took the Starfield difficulty slider approach here, and so I just hope for future remasters Bethesda considers this, because I understand wanting to give us the Oblivion we remember, but just like we've talked about with remasters, sometimes the thing you remember isn't as good as when you get your hands on it. And I feel like this would have been a part that was not deeply tied to people's nostalgia of Oblivion, where if they touched it up a little bit, I personally wouldn't have hated a little bit of an overhauled leveling system, especially because this one felt, at least from the outside looking in, felt the safest to touch. Something like Morrowind I've talked about a stupid amount, but if you touch Morrowind's leveling system, you disrupt the entire gameplay experience and how like you even progress. Like, oh, you want to make it where when you swing your sword or your dagger, that connects every hit. Well, that just ruins the point of like the blade skill, because now that's just maxed out completely. So what is the point of all of that, right? So that would require a much deeper overhaul. Something like Oblivion, where it's like, how does the world level with you? Do we create zones for levels? Like the rebalancing of it would be something that I think within the guts of the game would have been worth going after. So I do wish that they did tackle that. Overall, though, Oblivion Remastered, to me, does set a new standard for what remasters can do. I don't think we really ever thought about it this way, where Bethesda Game Studios and Virtuos can kind of push this remake quality in some areas while keeping a lot of the original vision that you do love. Even if with the leveling system, I feel like they could have done a little bit more. That's okay at the end of the day, but I think the biggest thing for me are the bugs and stability. I talk about this a lot leading into launch. Virtuos did Outer World Spacer's Choice. That was like really unstable. Then you have Bethesda, who has a history of unstable games. Then you throw in how games are made on Unreal Engine 5 today, on top of Gamebryo. It's like a nasty, nasty recipe when you think about it. This is the only way it could have turned out. So if this partnership does continue, I know I'm saying this now, and I'd rather say it now when my brain is clear than when I'm in the thick of the hype. Look, Fallout 3 Remaster, if you need a few more months, take it, because the stability did push me out. And I don't know if that's what we call growing up, where I can actually lay down the controller for a Bethesda Game Studios game. But that's where I kind of ended up. I want to go back, but it is one of those situations where a lot of things are coming out. My Switch 2 is arriving soon, right? And Oblivion Remastered is kind of missing its window where I might have to hit it later in the year. I did a similar thing with Baldur's Gate 3. When I first started it, it was cooking my PC, and Baldur's Gate 3 is incredible. I felt very lucky that when Starfield came in when it did, it took me away from Baldur's Gate 3, because when I went back and did my co-op playthrough of that game, and it was stable and it had like the epilogue patches and everything, I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy I waited. So maybe that's the best case for Oblivion Remaster, but I don't think it had to be that way, especially as a shadow drop. So those are my final thoughts on the game. Overall, I love a lot of what Bethesda did visually while keeping the core DNA of the game. I think there were some tweaks they could have done within the guts of the game to make it even a little bit better without disrupting our nostalgia. I think they should continue to add new voices to the game, and I wouldn't hate new content on top of it. But otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I've got. Let me know your final thoughts down below on Oblivion Remastered. Did you have a better time than me when it came to performance and stability? Fire away. Other than that, I'll catch all of you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.